Welcome, guys, to the JPS Podcast. And like I was saying to my good friend Steve Hall, it's very different and unusual being on this side of Steve. He's an interviewer on Revive Stronger and has a great little business with Pascal Floor. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
I pronounce it right? Yep. And the guys are doing some great things online and physique and strength coaches, and in my opinion, at the forefront of providing information to the fitness community that is evidence-based. So, welcome, Steve.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, it's always weird. I've been on a few podcasts and it always feels weird kind of being the one who's interviewed. I'm like, so I have to do more speaking? Like when I had Lyle McDonald on, it's like, introduce Lyle, done.
That's
Job
it.
done.
Yeah.
Just nod and smile.
Exactly right, and I had the exact same experience with Lyle, so I can imagine how odd this is for you. So talk to me, Steve. When did you get into the industry, and how did you come to be?
So yes, like you said, it can't I think to a lot of people I probably have come a bit out of nowhere potentially, but I have been kind of behind the scenes, kind of on the skirting edges of the industry for a while, but it all kind of happened, I guess, like I'd always been into sports. I think everyone can relate into kind of doing various things. I didn't know what I kind of wanted to do when I was at school, but I very much took and I feel bad saying it now because I'm in the industry, but I took like physical education, those sort of lines of kind of subjects as kind of like DOS easy subjects that like they're not academic. My parents didn't want me to be doing them at like for university and things like this, so I never went and did those, but they're always like not something I'm very, very much interested in. I'd always been fairly good at most sports, but then I went to university and so I studied geography with business, so completely unrelated to what I'm doing now. But whilst at university in my second year, I used to do like a lot of running. I used to do some gym work, nothing impressive at either really. As a lot of people know now, when you're trying to get good at something, you need to kind of specialize as much as you can. But I was on one of those runs and unfortunately ended up getting hit by a van, which sounds really traumatic. It was at the time, and now I look back and kind of laugh at it. And like when I'm crossing roads with my girlfriend, she's like, "Be careful! Like you've had bad history with this." I'm like, "What?" So yeah, that head injury landed me in hospital for I think almost a month at the time, and I lost any kind of muscle size I had. I came out incredibly skinny. I think I was 5'10", I was 5'10". I'm still 5'10", and came out at 130 pounds. So incredibly skinny. Like I think I lost 20 to 30 pounds like in a very short period of time. And the best way to lose muscle, if anyone does want to lose muscle, is like lie down, don't eat. Like just it catabolizes itself. Your body's got to take it from somewhere. So after that as well, I was kind of nursing head injuries, which led to kind of long-term complications with sodium levels. I was on water restrictions, diuretics. I later discovered I had like low testosterone, all of these things. So I very much felt kind of out of control of my life, and I became quite isolated kind of socially because I couldn't really go out and enjoy like nights out at uni because I couldn't drink anything. So that all led to kind of me really quite closing myself off. And I think that also led me to kind of finding the gym again because it was something I could control. I could control my body. I could control my food then as well and know that it was kind of working towards hopefully helping my body. And it was something I could kind of feel a bit more secure in what I was doing. So I started like, as everyone does, you just go onto Google, you try and find some information on like bulking because everyone's heard of bulking, even if you're kind of outside of the industry. And I did like the traditional bulk as it were, and
the dirty bulk.
Bulked up, dirty bulk. Although I thought it was clean, I was convinced if I didn't eat dirty food, it was going to be a clean. No fat, exactly.
What are calories, right?
I mean, it's weird. Like I tracked calories, I had like 400 grams of protein, way too much.
Wow.
the information was bro science at its kind of worst that I was implementing. I did gain I gained a lot of size, as you can imagine. I was eating, I think, 4,000 calories at 130 pounds, and I was gaining a good half a stone, 6 pounds in a week, in 2 weeks. It was just coming on
2.5 kilos. Yeah, right.
Yes, super fast.
Yeah.
And during this time, I was because I was on a forum, which is where I was finding my information from, I started logging my progress rather. So I was speaking to people on there. I started a YouTube channel. So this is kind of where my kind of inkling into the industry was coming.
Yeah.
But I also was working an office job at the same time that I really wasn't enjoying. And I basically just turned up to work, was that guy that was quiet in the corner, eating out of his Tupperware boxes, and then shuffled off to the gym as soon as I could to get my workouts in. It wasn't really a very fun time, and it was very controlling of my lifestyle way I was doing things, but it was what I was used to. It was what I thought produced results. Where I don't know where I discovered Alan Aragon, but I think I must have been Googling something, and bodybuilding.com came up, and I saw Alan Aragon commenting on some threads that I was trying to find the answer to. And I was like, who is this guy? He's talking about if it fits your macros. He's talking about being able to eat white rice and it not mattering that it's white over brown. This is just completely
absurd.
Wrong. It's not clean. Yeah, it was really, I wasn't happy about it at all. And at the same time, I think there was a link to Lyle McDonald's website, bodyrecomposition.com. And so I was like, oh, this sounds more legit. I started reading Lyle's stuff, and I was literally blown away with the amount of content and information that was on there.
This sounds very much insane. Like my story into the evidence-based community. Very much the same.
Literally, this is exactly what it was. And so I used to, when I was commuting, I started kind of downloading some of his articles, and I used to read them every single, on the way there, way back, gym. And that was my life for a few months on end. And at the same time, I found Ian McCarthy on YouTube, who I know has been on the podcast quite a few times. And this was way back in the day when he was just
no bullshit bodybuilding. Yeah.
So he really opened my eyes to the shit I used to do, and I loved his videos. If anything, they really convinced me about Alan, about Lyle, and then I started finding the guys 3DMJ through Matt Ogus. I think I found them through Matt Ogus. I saw Eric Helms, kind of went on the channel, got featured.
That's the exact same as me. Yeah.
Crazy. There must be a lot of us who have gone through this kind of journey finding these people, which is fantastic. And you think how small they were back then, and now they're
where they are now. Yeah,
exactly.
That's
and
pretty
to
awesome.
think that now I've had them on the podcast and stuff, it blows my mind. It's ridiculous. Eventually I was doing all of this. I actually got my results were much, much better as I started implementing and trusting their stuff. I think I started running 5-3-1 with some bodybuilding accessory work because Matt Ogus is doing it. And I eventually was while doing my kind of office work, I started studying to be a personal trainer on the side because I was like, okay, it might be something I want to go into eventually. It's my dream, not my dream, but it's my passion. It's what I love. And I eventually got to a position where I passed that whilst I was working, and there was a point at which I was like, I'm either going to go down the route of being a merchandiser, which is what I was doing at the time in the office. It's funny, I was doing all Excel spreadsheets then, and very similar
You're
now.
still doing all Excel spreadsheets.
Or go into the fitness industry. And so I decided to take the risk, quit my job. I was living at home, so it wasn't a huge risk. It was calculated. And then started working in my local gym that luckily had a position for me. And at the same time, I started an actual bodybuilding contest prep, which was quite a good time that the two kind of lined up, because anyone who has worked in a commercial gym as a personal trainer, if you're not busy, especially if you're new, there's not a lot for you to do apart from clean and talk to people on the floor. So I managed to kind of prep, especially your first prep, you're kind of, especially that it's normally longer than it should probably be, or you don't give yourself enough time, one of the two.
Yeah, definitely.
I had to lose 30 pounds, so I think I dieted for
All the
close to a
folking.
year. Yeah, like there was a lot to go. So I did all of that, and at the same time, and while I was also working, I had the YouTube channel going. I had started a blog, so I've actually had 3 websites till I got to revivestronger.com. I think I had like the Fitness Hub was my first one. Then I went to Stephen Hall, Revive with Stephen Hall, and now I'm at Revive Stronger. So there has been like a lot of, I look back at some of those old blog posts, I'm like, how did I ever think this or write like this? So there's been a lot that's happened kind of leading into where I am now. But I think it really, my position and people started seeing my name was when I was doing the contest prep. People in my gym, there was a lot of kind of not kids, well, I guess they're kids, but like teenagers from the surrounding schools. And they started seeing me like transform my body. And they're like, oh, this guy obviously knows what he's doing. So they started asking me things. And then I was doing, because of the YouTube channel, one person had contacted me on there. I was doing online coaching for him for like pittance, like no money. But just because he asked me, I was like, okay, I'll try. It's a good experience. So then people in the gym were asking me like, I don't want a one-on-one personal trainer to like take me through form and like, I don't need my reps and sets counted, but I really need help with my diet and my programming. So then it started building in my local gym. I started getting results with people in there, and then I could publish these online. I could have reviews of people who kind of transform their bodies. I transformed my own through doing the show, and that really kind of gave me a good like settling
foundation.
A foundation to move from. And then the risk again came where my girlfriend at the time, who I met at work, there was an opportunity to kind of move in together. I'd still been living at home all this time, so I had to kind of again take the plunge, be like, am I earning enough to go full online and just move into London and do it? And I decided to, and then that's where kind of I had to be a workhorse and make sure I kind of was producing social media content, like blogging, all of these things, so that I had clients coming in. Otherwise, like I wouldn't be able to pay the rent. And luckily, I haven't kind of suffered any time where I've been like pinching pennies or anything like that. It's been really sustainable. And I can really thank and put that down to some long-term clients I've had. I've got some people working with me now who were basically with me since the start, which is easy. So I've had some people for over 2 years.
Man,
I guess in a very long-winded way, that's kind of the journey into the industry.
It's funny because obviously we all have our own journeys, but my journey is so similar to yours, and I think there's so many things that we can relate to in that, because I went through the gym floor. I used to clean the gym floor. When I started my personal training, I didn't have any clients, so I thought I'll do a bodybuilding contest prep to establish a point of difference, and then it sort of all transpired from there. So it's a testament to you, and I can relate to the grind and how hard that can be. So what I wanted to talk to you today about was you've now started to make a name for yourself outside of just coaching and whatnot in terms of the MiniCut. So do you want to explain to the listeners what a MiniCut is and give it a little bit of context as to when we would use it, why it's necessary, and everything else in between?
Yeah, totally. And that's really cool. I'm glad that it's nice to know that there's something people like think of me, they might think of MiniCuts, because it's definitely something I've used multiple times, like with myself, with clients. And now I've got I call it the MiniCut movement. So group online coaching.
A lot of really good results too.
Actually, it's funny how it all kind of started. Oh, awesome. Yeah, you probably find because it's group coaching, I've had a lot of people go through it, and I wish I'd had like a formal process of always getting their results, but it's only if they randomly them in and I'm like, oh great, I've got them now. So like hundreds of people have gone through it now, which is awesome. I first discovered actually MiniCuts, I think 3DMJ, I think they had their MiniCut video, which is still kind of online. I think Alberto was explaining how to run a MiniCut. And I remember asking Eric Helms, messaging him before I started kind of doing the group coaching, am I okay to try MiniCut? Because I thought it was like his thing or 3DMJ's thing. And he was like, it's not ours. Like Lane was doing it for years before him. It's not like a new special thing. So once that happened, I started running with it. And I guess the easy way to explain it is a MiniCut is, as it says, it is what it is on the tin. Kind of, it's a short cut. Yeah. It's not anything long in length. So in terms of length, I personally view it as 4 to 6 weeks. If you're getting anything longer than like a basic mesocycle in length,
it's a cut.
It's basically, it's becoming a normal cut. You're fooling yourself if you're going longer than that. And I think you can use a MiniCut to set up a longer cut. I think that's definitely an approach you can take, but it's no longer a mini. It's kind of, it's become a lot bigger. And it's, the other definition I think is important for it is also, it's basically as aggressive, or the way I do it, because this is how I kind of rule it, is it's as aggressive as you can be without losing muscle mass. You do not want to risk muscle mass, because I know there's like Lyle McDonald's got his quicker approaches, but rapid fat loss and things like this, and they certainly put more muscle mass at risk. They still might not be great, but so it's the length of time is definitely the first definer, and then the fact that you're going basically as aggressive as you can for that time to lose as much fat as possible but no muscle mass. And because it is short and sharp, you get multiple benefits. You can be more assertive with things because it's shorter, so the body doesn't react in such a bad way. You also don't get that like metabolic slowdown and things. So you can actually do a MiniCut and transition straight into like bulky and not have to worry about adjusting calories, being funny about your transitions. Those are really good benefits. So I first was using them as a way for people who are bulking to kind of strip back some fluff to then continue bulking again and stay in that nice like 10 to 15%, where we know kind of your partitioning ratios superior. You partition more kind of nutrients to muscle over fat, which is great. Also, most of us, if we are like competitive, you don't want to fall too far outside 15%, unless you're not competing in years and years and years. You're kind of going to make that transition a lot easier by having these MiniCuts thrown in. Also, it just kind of, and it keeps you kind of insulin sensitive. So in a way, it's kind of like a nutritional phase potentiation. If people have heard of like phasic periodization for their programming and kind of hypertrophy and strength, you can do the same with your nutrition. You cut a bit, so then that potentiates your massing in future, because now you're more insulin sensitive, those sort of things. But now I also see a lot of people wanting to do it and kind of then transition into a longer cut. So you basically start out aggressive. It's really good with clients because they get good feels from it, like they get buy-in, and then you can slow down as you progress into it. Definitely. So it works for so many people, but there's also people who really should not use it. And these people come to it all the time because they're drawn to it, because it sounds fancy. It sounds like fast fat loss. Like, this is awesome. I'm going to get really lean in no time. The current diet, and that's where it goes wrong. It's like, you're dieting right now. You can't expect to start aggressively. You need to be healthy. A lot of people who have been dieting, for months and months and months, and they try and come to it, and I'm like, they ask me, because I have, for the group coaching at least, I say like, you cannot have been dieting for like the last month at least. Like, you need to have not been dieting, because the metabolism will have shifted down by then. And you get so many people who have been dieting for so long, and then they try and come and do like a MiniCut, and they're not going to see any results. They may even lose muscle mass in that time. They need to take a time at maintenance, so they can kind of allow their body to recover. If people like diet breaks, refeeds, along those sort of lines. Sorry, I kind of went on a bit of a tangent.
No, it's good. It's good. Perfect.
Hopefully that kind of explains it a little bit.
You answered most of the questions that I had following on from that, which is really good. So in terms of starting a MiniCut, obviously you've set some constraints there in terms of a prerequisite to start a MiniCut, being in a surplus or maintenance, or not dieting for a certain period before we begin. when somebody does begin, we obviously want to be aggressive for a set period of time, typically 4 to 6 weeks. How aggressive are we talking as a percentage of maintenance calories, or is it just simply where do we draw the line, Steve?
Cool. No, this is a really good question because I actually have changed my approach on this. When I first started, I was basing this off a study in which they kind of went into a 30% calorie deficit with some like I think they were called elite, but studies always kind of call these people more advanced than they are. But these guys who are kind of very well, pretty damn well trained, 30% calorie deficit, they lost a lot of fat, but didn't lose muscle in kind of a short dieting period. And it was kind of based off this, in that if you get your protein right, you get your carbs right, you weight train properly, you can go into like a 30% calorie deficit and lose a good amount of weight and not risk muscle loss. And 30% to most people is aggressive. Like that is a big calorie deficit. However, after looking through further kind of studies, kind of reading up kind of the muscle and strength pyramids, reading up Renaissance periodization, their diet book, and then looking more at kind of a much more individualized approach to setting up the calorie deficit, I realized it's actually better, and you could potentially lose more fat by setting it via a loss of body weight per week, a percentage loss per week, kind of as a rough guide, because it's so short, like fluctuations occur and you can't ever guarantee. In the first week, normally you lose a lot more and it kind of tapers off. So I now look to lose on average for that person a given percentage per week. And that's individualized further by their body fat. So, so because you'll get people they might try and do a MiniCut at like 12%, and that they're not going to see loads of fat loss.
30% deficit will hurt.
Yeah, exactly. For them, that's big. Whereas if they're at 12% body fat, they should only really be looking to lose like 0.5% of their body weight per week. And if they're a really light individual, that's going to not be actually very much. Whereas someone coming into it when they're like 30% body fat, a 30% calorie deficit for them might not, and they're like 250 pounds or something silly. Sorry, not silly. If someone's that big, like they're just big. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. We probably don't have any listeners like that for this show anyway, but
I don't think so.
They could look to lose like 1.5% to 2% of their body weight per week. And so you could put in a big deficit for them. So it's individualized by the percentage because that's really related to their body weight. And then it's individualized by their body fat percentage. So that gives you a theoretical starting point of how to set the deficit. And to go further into that, if say, to keep it really simple, if that worked out that they wanted to lose like 1.5 pounds per week, then we're going to go off the assumption 500 calorie deficit is a pound per week. So 750 calorie deficit is around 1.5.
Cool.
I might, for the group, because I set their nutrition for them, I might kind of be a bit more assertive because we get like loss through thermic effect of feeding. You might assume that they kind of, I don't know, they get into a dieting mindset and ramp things down. Yeah, things like this. But yeah, that's basically how I set up the actual calorie deficit. I think that's really important. I think that's the most individualized way you can go about setting up any calorie 100%. Deficit.
I definitely agree. Yeah, a lot of really good points. So obviously we've got the time frame, size of the deficit. We know that protein is important and we have to lift weights. So with the MiniCut, obviously we're not too concerned with daily variations in our intake so long as we're at that weekly calorie deficit and then obviously over the course of 4 to 6 weeks. However, my question too is, would you implement refeeds, 24, 48-hour refeeds within such a short period, considering that you're going for maximum fat loss and any time out of a deficit is time not losing fat? Or is it simply a matter of still using it as a tool when needed? What are your thoughts? How do you approach that?
No, it's a really good question because refeeds have been under kind of the hammer recently. A lot more people have been looking at them and really kind of figuring out, are they actually all they're cracked up to be? They used to be really, like I used to put them on when I didn't even understand really what they did. I was like, refeeds keep you losing fat. That's what they do.
Leptin, bro.
So yeah, a lot of people think they're necessary. I tend to tell people for this period of time, there's no planned refeeds. And in fact, for a lot of my clients, I say the same. I don't plan them a refeed. I plan them a diet break, but we don't plan a refeed. And I kind of term them reactive refeeds.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a term people have said before, but I like reactive refeeds.
You could start that. I like that. It could be the MiniCut movement and reactive refeeds. I like it. Yeah.
And so it's more, people might be like, okay, I've got this event on the weekend. I'm going to really find it hard to diet for it. And I just be like, right,
bang.
Rather than call it a cheat or something like that, we'll just call it actually a reactive refeed. Try and keep your fats a bit lower and your carbs higher. But if you hit protein and calories or at maintenance that day, effectively it's a day not dieting. It's not going to be the end of the world. I don't want them to then really restrict. The thing you don't want is people to kind of have those binge and purge cycles, because then that sets them up for kind of a big failure. But even I know personally I've had good kind of response with refeeds, especially like multi-day refeeds with females. And I know 3DMJ have as well. But even in this short period of time, and when I run mini cuts for my one-on-one clients, I don't throw in refeeds unless kind of, like I said, if there's a social occasion or if they're feeling really beat up on a day, and I'm just like, right, it's kind of like taking a light day rather than a full-on deload. You just take a single light day. It just keeps them going. That's the way they're sort of implemented.
Fantastic. Yeah, that gives that a lot more structure, I guess. And the other question I had in regards to the mini cuts, so now that we've started to build the foundations and then layer it on top of that, where does cardio come into this? Do you prescribe cardio with a mini cut, or is it simply the deficit from the diet? How do you approach that, Steve?
So personally, I like not to lean on cardio much at all for any fat loss, because it's so much less predictable. I find if I take away like 100 calories from someone, it's like, okay, I know I've got that 100 calories. I know they're eating 100 calories less. Whereas if I add like 200 calories of cardio, I don't know exactly what that's doing for that person. And what I mean by that is, as you know, during that time they're on the treadmill burning 200 calories, they may have burned like 50 calories while lying on the sofa, so they've only net their 150 calories, not the 200. And then so many people, like I've had the amount of messages I get, they're like, if I do 200 calories of cardio, can I have 2 slices of bread? Because I've now earned that. And it's like, oh, it doesn't quite work like that.
I have a big, bold disclaimer in our nutritional plans. Do not track calories burnt from cardio. Do not replace food with calories burnt from cardio.
I think part of the problem as well, because a lot of our clients probably use something like MyFitnessPal, and if they link that up with their cardio, it then looks like they've earned food, which in some ways they have, but in other ways they really haven't.
It's too inaccurate. Just for the listeners, Steve, just for the listeners, can you please share how many days in a row you have tracked?
Oh, God. I'd have to get it up. My streak is getting scary close to like 2,000.
That's impressive, man.
I will admit, I haven't actually like they're not all full track days, as you can imagine. Like Christmas Day, I'll log in and be like, okay, I'm going to have turkey and put in, and then I'll leave it. And then, it's that kind of, if the listeners get anything from that, they get a bit of an insight into the type of person I am. In that I am just like, like that.
Hashtag team no days off.
Hashtag outwork. It will all pay off. And then the other problem I wanted to bring up with the adding cardio is that you get people will react differently to it. Some people will kind of react badly and they just become lazy. I think there's even been studies that James Krieger, I think, has talked about at various conferences that I've been to, in that people can compensate for all of it and even like overcompensate for it in terms of just being lazy, not even just eating more. So those are why don't like to rely on cardio too much. But for smaller people who are eating relatively little, or sedentary people who have like sedentary jobs, they can't get out and walk a lot and things like this, that's where cardio can really help, because it just allows them to eat a bit more. And it's not much more, but it is a bit. And you have to be careful with cardio, because I never use HIIT, basically never, because I had in the past, and it was kind of like the golden boy for a period of time. And now you look back at it, you kind of understand that it just wrecks you. Like weight training is your biggest stimulus for retaining muscle mass. Why kind of put HIIT in there that's going to actually deter from this when you can put in LIS, which could actually, a small amount is probably going to promote your weight training. And you just have to be careful not to put too much of the LIS, low intensity, steady state stuff in. But that is
it's harder to overdo that than it is the high intensity interval training for sure.
Yeah, like when you think about, people have probably heard of maximal recoverable volume, or just kind of, people just think about you can only do so much, your body can only kind of do so much and recover from a certain amount of just work in general. And if you're already dieting, that's a stress. And then you've got your weight training, and then you've got kind of life, work. And if you add cardio to the mix, these all take away from kind of this pool. So you have to be careful, and HIIT just takes a bigger chunk out for every minute you do it.
For sure. So basically no cardio. Training, does training stay the same? Is there an increase in volume? Is there a decrease in volume? How do you approach training in that sense, Steve?
So training is very much hypertrophy training. So it is kind of more voluminous than, like, there's no sets of like 5s in there that I like to see. It's kind of 6 to 15 is where it probably ranges to. And what I really like, and this is what I do with my one-on-one clients, is to go through kind of a short maintenance phase before it, where they're low volume. Then they can do kind of a slightly higher, but not super high volume MiniCut. And then they can come out and even increase volume for another like couple of mesocycles, so they can keep kind of having that volume overload. Yeah, exactly. But for people who are kind of coming in from maybe massing or something like this, they're basically going to be training very much the same, because you don't really want to see a reduction in the volume you've already been doing, because we know volume is kind of the key marker for muscle growth when it's sufficient intensity. So you don't really want to see that reduce. So yeah, through the mesocycle, we're looking each week to kind of incrementally increase volume as we can. I very much like Mike Israetel's volume landmark. So he talks about kind of starting off with your minimum effective volume, moving towards maximal adaptive volume, and then moving towards the maximal recoverable volume. You have to be really careful, and this is auto-regulated through it. And you have to really kind of look at kind of how your performance is, how your recovery is going. But yeah, for the most part, typical hypertrophy training, the best way to keep the muscle is how you train to get the muscle. I know there's lots of people that kind of talk about volume not maybe being that important. You can dial back volume. I think that's being a bit more challenged of late, because I think a real big kind of downside to that, and those studies that they're looking at, is the people aren't dieting. They're not bodybuilders dieting, or just anyone dieting. And when you are dieting, you really want to signal anabolism, and the best way to do that is with sufficient intensity, voluminous training, 6 to 15 reps. So I think that's really important for people to do. So training twice a week, obviously muscle groups twice a week. Just working towards that maximal recoverable volume, and then kind of taking that deload, and that's kind of the MiniCut hopefully done. Yeah.
Awesome. A lot of really important concepts that hopefully listeners take from that. That was really well said. And I guess the next most important question is, once we've successfully been through a MiniCut, do we just go back to bulking? Do we maintain? Do we gaintain, as Alberto Nunez says? What is your transition phase after a MiniCut?
So I think it would depend on the person. So we talked about some people might transition straight into bulking, longer term cutting. So for that person, basically, I finish it with like a diet break when they deload, and they just kind of let things settle a little bit, and then they go into like a less assertive cutting, but very much similar to what they've been doing. Maybe they introduce kind of 2 days on the weekend, they have a refeed or something to reduce that calorie deficit for the week, or they just reduce it overall. So that's their transition. They haven't got anything much to think about. And then the other type of person there's kind of arguments to and fro. And like I've had Lyle McDonald on the podcast, he talked about his transition periods, and kind of how you could maintain for a period of time before then you go into massing. I don't think that's necessary in the slightest for MiniCuts, because there's no kind of down regulation, particularly in your metabolism. Like it's because it's such a short period of time, you don't need to worry about that, and you're not like really set up for fat gain necessarily, because you're not like really super lean. So the body's not like trying to fight to get to like a set, like your higher set point. You're basically at your lower end of your set point with the MiniCut. So then you can bulk up quite comfortably to your higher point. So you're actually really sensitive to muscle growth. So I like to see people go out of that deload straight into, which the deload generally I base around maintenance calories anyway. So you might claim there's like that transition that is a bit of a transition period, and then straight into massing after that. And then they can just follow that up with slightly more volume than they've been doing. Maybe they add in, maybe they were just doing like incline and flat bench press. Now they add in a fly in addition to that. Just a small amount of extra sets that aren't going to kind of blow their recovery out the water. And because they're now eating more, the actual ability to recover and do more volume, like their MRV goes up because they're eating more now. So they've already got that security right
gains.
there. And then yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, brilliant. And I guess the final question to sort of conclude our discussion on MiniCuts is, how frequently would somebody have a MiniCut after their first MiniCut?
That's a good question. And the way I used to implement them was basically whenever someone got kind of to their higher end of their set point. I think that's a very good approach to take. However, I don't know if kind of it's enough time to bring someone right down to their lower end.
Because the problem I see, sorry to cut in there, Steve. A problem I see with it is that, you know, the typical bodybuilder per se can be quite extreme, and most people have a very hard time with maintaining weight, or at least slow weight gain, and it could be used as a tool to, oh shit, I got a little bit fat, let's MiniCut. Oh, yep, I'm done with my MiniCut, let's bulk again. And it's like this just chop and change between, you know, cutting and gaining, and there's actually no real progress made. They're spinning their wheels. So how do you ensure that a MiniCut is used for its intended purpose and not bastardized as a means for somebody to perpetuate their yo-yo dieting?
Yeah. No, I can completely see that, especially when I had Mike over on the weekend, I did a short presentation, which was really scary, on something I've called adipose phobia, which is like fat phobia, fat fear of bulking. And one of the things was like people starting a bulk 2 weeks in, I got a cut. And it's like, no, don't do that.
Stick it out.
So yeah, people do not want to take that. I take what I like, and this phasic approach of kind of periodizing nutrition and training. I very much like 3 to 4 months, or 3 to 4 mesocycles even. So that could be more than that, could be more like 4 to 6 months of gaining, followed by a short period of kind of maintenance. So you can kind of hold on to things, let volume come down. So then you can have a really efficient MiniCut to finish that up. And then that MiniCut sets you up for some more gaining. So you kind of follow this kind of 4 to 6 month massing, month or so maintaining, month at MiniCutting, and then you can go again, mass, and then you can follow this through. And probably through that, you'll find you have to, after maybe doing that 3 times, you'd have to then finish it with like an extended cut, which might be like a contest prep or something like that. That can be really effective. But some people, if they are a bit on the fatter side, but they don't like maybe cutting for long periods of time, they could even do like 2 months massing, 1 month maintenance, 1 month MiniCut, 2 months massing. But as you know, the shorter you keep those periods, the less predictable things become, because whenever you're looking at scale weight and things like this, like it's averages over the long term, so hard to measure. Like the more you get into online coaching, especially, you realize like how the scale weight is sometimes is not helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess one of the last questions I wanted to ask you before we finish, Steve, is unrelated to MiniCuts, because I think you did a terrific job in clarifying that. I think a lot of people are going to walk away and have a better understanding of what it is, how to apply it, and then some general, guidelines as to how to best implement it. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you what you think it takes to achieve fitness industry success.
Oh, wow. That's a thank you, first of all. I hope people did take, and if they've got questions about the MiniCut,
comment below.
yeah, please comment below, contact me. I'm actually in the process. It's funny that we're doing this because I'm in the process of writing an article called the MiniCut Manual on my website.
Beautiful.
So
I'll link that
it
in
was
the
quite good timing.
description.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I hope to add questions, like if people have questions, and I hope to have like an FAQ on there and stuff, make it really comprehensive. But yeah, industry success. Sometimes I hate myself for these analogies. I always revert back to like bodybuilding analogies. So I think like, what does it take to be a successful bodybuilder? It takes like hours of dedication, consistency, adherence to the principles that you know work. And I think the exact same thing relates to business. It's hours of consistency, of continuous effort and work. But like bodybuilding, if you want to kind of, if you want better results or you want to kind of pick things up a bit, you keep up to date with things. So an example for me would be like, okay, podcasts were growing. So I decided to try getting into doing a podcast. Exactly like you've got one yourself. It's a great thing to be doing. And some people really, it works for them. Other people, it doesn't. Like I've found it seems to work okay for myself. I don't know. I never thought I was a great interviewer, but it seems to work. Or things like Instagram, like Snapchat started blowing up. So I kind of like started getting on that, see how results were. And then I was like, I'm going to go off Snapchat, stick to Instagram. That seems to be working better. Same with people do it with their training, like blood flow restriction training, for example. Maybe that was like blowing up. People try that. They're like, maybe I can just do normal pump work. I don't need to spend so much time doing this. This produces the same results. But it's always kind of trying to stay on the kind of the cutting edge, as it were. And yeah, just being really consistent with your content, with the stuff you're producing, but also individualizing it. So like your training, your nutrition, like you individualize it to you, see how things work for you, what you work best with, find what platforms work for you, kind of give your voice to things. That's something I massively changed with my writing. Is I used to write like a textbook. Like you might as well be copy and pasting textbook stuff into my blogs. Whereas now it's very much like, I think it helps knowing it. So I don't need to reference textbooks all the time, and I can just write it out, and you can put it in your own words, your own language. And there's going to be people that hate it, but there'll be plenty of people who are very much like you. You're probably going to attract clients. You can probably attest to this. You attract clients who are very similar to yourself.
100%.
So write like in your own voice, you'll attract people. And yeah, I think it's all of those things combined, and staying humble helps, and kind of giving due respect where it's required, because I do see people kind of not necessarily stealing, but they very much kind of take things from other people. They don't necessarily kind of give people the credit. Give credit where it's due, because it doesn't hurt you. It can only help you.
For sure, that was a brilliant response, and I expected nothing less from you, Steve. My man, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Guys, if you did enjoy that, make sure you like the video. Go check out Steve's channel. He has a heap of really, really informative content there, both from his interviews and the other content that he puts out. His website's pretty awesome as well. If you are trying to set up a MiniCut, you're getting a little bit fluffy in your bulk, go to his website, do the MiniCut, learn from the best, and thank you again, Steve.
No, I really appreciate it, Jacob. It's been a really fun chat. It's nice being on this end sometimes and just being able to chat with someone and not...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's good. And yeah, I appreciate all the kind words. And yeah, if anyone does have any questions, anything like that, totally approachable. And that'll be awesome. And I want to say, like, your channel and the podcast, been loving it. Just need more content, mate.
Yeah, there's not enough hours in the day, my friend.
I know.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Cheers.